Melody Sherry moving forward with her life, she is still very much bothered by her. Now, at first glance, some people may try to brush it off as just regular cast drama, but when you really look at the energy Tisha has been giving, both on the show and on social media, it's hard to ignore. Her actions, her tone, and even the way she talks about Melody when she doesn't have to. It's all pointing to one thing. Tisha cannot let go of the past, and fans are dragging her for it. Let's start with the obvious. Melody Sherry has been on her own journey. She's focusing on her businesses, her children, her music, and honestly, her peace. Say what you want about Melody, but one thing is true. She knows how to take pain and turn it into progress. That's why fans love her. She left Martell, she built her empire, and she's continuing to elevate. But the contrast is very noticeable when you put her growth side by side with what's going on with Letitia and Marsau. And let's not act like Tisha hasn't been through her own struggles. From the constant cheating rumors surrounding Marsau to the never-ending Scott Manor construction delays, she has had more than enough on her plate. But instead of truly focusing on those issues and how they impact her family, her marriage, and her image, she always finds a way to circle back to Melody. It's almost as if Melody is the standard she's measuring herself against, and that is where the problem comes in. Because at this point, Melody isn't even paying her any mind, but Tisha is giving fans every reason to believe she's still bitter. Oh, let's break down the timeline of Marsau's so-called ATL trip, because this is where things get even more messy. Marsau told Tisha that he was with Chris Fletcher. Fine, that sounds like an alibi, right? But then Chris Fletcher comes out and admits he only saw Marsau for a short window of time. So, if Marsau was really in Atlanta for an extended stay, and Chris only saw him briefly, then the obvious question is, what was Marsau doing for the rest of the trip? Where was he? Who was he with? Those are the unanswered questions. And Marsau has never given a clear, detailed timeline. He just throws out Chris's name and expects people to stop asking questions. But that strategy has officially backfired, because now Chris's name is tied up in the drama, and Chris doesn't want his marriage or reputation dragged through the mud over Marsau's shady behavior. This brings me to Chris Fletcher himself. He has always tried to be neutral, tried to be the guy who keeps his head down, works his real estate deals, and supports his wife Nell. But thanks to Marsau, he's now pulled directly into the fire. And honestly, I can understand why Nell was upset in that moment when the conversation happened, because think about it. Your husband is being used as a cover story by another man, and that story doesn't add up. Now you're left trying to clean up his name while also being dragged into the mess yourself. It's embarrassing. And Nell made it clear that she wasn't here for it. That's why she snapped back, because she felt like her husband was being thrown under the bus. And y'all, let's not forget that this isn't the first time Marsau has had people side-eyeing his stories. We all remember back in earlier seasons when the infamous Atlanta trip came up before. Fans have long speculated that Atlanta is Marsau's playground, a place where he feels free to move differently than he does in Huntsville. So when another Atlanta trip comes up years later, and once again the story doesn't make sense, of course fans are going to connect the dots. History repeats itself, and Marsau has given viewers every reason to believe that he's not being completely transparent. Now, let's pivot to Scott Manor, because this situation ties directly into the bigger picture of Marsau and Tisha's marriage. Scott Manor has been a symbol of broken promises for years now. Tisha has been holding on to this dream of building their family home, something she could proudly say she and Marsau created together. But season after season, that house is still unfinished. It's become a running joke among fans. But the truth is, it's not funny anymore. It's a reflection of Marsau's inability to follow through, not just in business, but also in his marriage. How do you promise your wife the world, promise her a dream home, and yet years later, she's still waiting? That's not just about a house. It's about emotional neglect. It's about constantly pushing your wife's dreams aside while prioritizing your own ventures and excuses. This is why fans feel so strongly about Tisha being bothered, because it's not just this one ATL trip. It's years of her playing defense, years of her carrying the weight of their marriage on her back, years of her waiting for a home that may never come. When you add all of that together, the picture becomes clear. Tisha is not just bothered. She is weighed down, and viewers can see it all over her face. Another angle to consider is how Melody fits into all of this. Even though Melody has stepped Back from constantly clashing with Tisha, fans are quick to point out how different Melody's energy is compared to Tisha's. Melody has made it clear that she will no longer stand by and defend lies, manipulation, or disrespect. She walked away from her marriage with Martel when the red flags kept piling up. And now, fans are looking at Tisha and asking why she continues to hold on to Marsau when the red flags are waving in her face. It's an uncomfortable comparison, but one that Tisha can't escape, especially because Melody represents the version of strength that Tisha has yet to embrace. Fans are not blind. They are connecting all of these dots, and they are speaking loudly about it on social media. Some are calling Tisha naive, others are calling her complicit. But the general consensus is that this ATL trip situation has cracked, opened the facade. It has exposed a truth that Tisha can no longer hide. She is bothered, and no amount of forced smiles or defensive clapbacks can cover that up anymore. So, where does this leave the Scotts moving forward? Honestly, it puts them in a tough spot. Marsau's credibility is slipping fast, and Tisha's loyalty is starting to look less like strength and more like denial. If they want to survive as a couple, Marsau has to stop using half-truths and flimsy excuses. He has to start being fully transparent with his wife, because if not, the marriage will continue to crumble on camera for everyone to see. And Tisha has to decide how much more of this she is willing to tolerate. Does she want to keep playing the role of the dutiful wife at the expense of her own peace, or is she ready to finally put her foot down and demand better? That's the question fans are waiting to see answered. And as for Chris Fletcher and Nell, they're caught in the crossfire, but their reaction shows us something important. They are not willing to let their marriage be collateral damage in Marsau and Tisha's drama. Chris wants his name cleared, Nell wants her husband respected, and they are making sure that line is drawn. It's a reminder that not everyone is willing to play along with the Scotts' never-ending excuses. But here's the thing, fans aren't buying it. The comments have been brutal, with people calling out Tisha for having all this misplaced energy. They're saying she should be questioning Marsau, not worrying about what Melody thinks or says. And honestly, they have a point. At this stage in the game, it's no longer about defending your husband from outsiders. It's about addressing the patterns that keep popping up year after year. And let's not forget about Scott Manor. You guys, that house has been in the works for how long now? Fans are tired of hearing about it because every season there's some new excuse, some new delay, and it still isn't finished. Meanwhile, Melody is building, expanding, and showcasing results. Again, the contrast is undeniable, and it only adds fuel to the fire when people say Tisha is bothered. Now, if you think the fans were quiet about all this, think again. Social media has been lit up with comments dragging Tisha for staying pressed. Some people are even saying she projects her frustrations with Marsau onto Melody because it's easier to deflect than to deal with what's happening in her own household. Others believe she's still holding on to resentment from when her and Melody's friendship fell apart, and that she can't stand the fact that Melody is winning while